And welcome back to Eyewitnesses at 6 as we continue with our AccuWeather snow alert ahead of our nor'easter, which is already getting underway in terms of the first snowflakes in southernmost New Jersey. Blizzard warnings along the coast, winter storm warnings up for New York City, much of New Jersey, lower Hudson Valley, southwest Connecticut, western Long Island too, and then winter weather advisories near the Delaware Water Gap. And that's not a mistake that we don't have advisories in the Poconos and Catskills, just too far away from the storm. The strongest storms are able to stack up big totals in Times Square. It's, the heart of the city, the subway's going underneath, lots of traffic, so warm, even in some of the stronger storms, you don't see accumulation here. I do think we'll see it on 7th and Broadway as we go through the midnight hour and certainly by morning. 32 degrees right now. This temperature's going to drop quite a bit. That's a very key element of this storm is the Arctic front coming in. 21 Albany, 12 in Syracuse. So that's seeping in as the first snow bands begin to come northward. And I think as they converge, things will get interesting here toward our 11 o'clock show. So we're not going to be snowing at 32 during the heart of the storm. We'll be snowing in the upper teens and low 20s. And when you have drier air like that, you can use some of that moisture, as limited as it may be in some areas, and stack it up in a hurry. You can make more snow out of less liquid. So the fluff factor, we call it, is high. Now, right now, we're in the upper 20s and low 30s. It's 25 in Monticello, and that cold air is seeping in. And if you notice, we've got some snow creeping up through Monmouth and Ocean County right now, a little steadier near Toms River. We have a half an inch ahead of the Arctic front in places like Chatham, New Jersey, and Princeton, but we're just getting started here. We're seeing the rain area expand here off the Carolina coast. Won't be surprised to see some lightning strikes here as the storm begins to rapidly intensify, because you can see the jet stream, the dip in it right here, that big trough beginning to get to the East Coast, and that's when this thing will really start to take off. It's just like adding some high-octane gas to it. You can see the snow here across southern Monmouth and Ocean, and look, it looks like it meets up with the Arctic front here later in the evening hours, and then snow starts to blossom over the I-80 corridor into New York City, parts of Long Island, and then we start to hit a different gear after midnight. With that said, we're still in the upper 20s to around 30. It's by daybreak that we're dropping through the 20s and teens, and now your snow rates can really be picking up with some intense span. One over parts of eastern Long Island, one over central Long Island depicted by this model, and one right over the city. And what happens is when you have those intense bands, in between the bands, it's a little lighter. So it's big differences over short distances, and that's really been the theme of this storm, not only on a very high resolution mode, but also across the entire area as the snow puts on the brakes well north and west, and we don't get a huge storm in our far western suburbs. The heart of this probably goes through lunchtime, early afternoon in New York City. The last flakes may be between 3 and 4, but it continues late afternoon into the early evening over parts of Long Island, and then it's cold and windy and very difficult to clean this thing up. Here are the snow bands we have. Looking for 8 to 12 inches in New York City. If we're going to get a foot in the city, it's probably Brooklyn and Queens. Could have a foot or more over parts of Long Island. The East End, there could be some 20-inch totals. That area could actually scrape parts of the Jersey Shore. Over much interior parts of New Jersey, a 6 to 10 or 12-inch storm into the lower Hudson Valley, and then too far north and west in a place like Wantage, you're in a 3 to 6-inch total. Poconos and Catskills, much less. Now, these are the general bands, but how about pinpointing different places and seeing the areas that could get some of the highest totals? Meteorologist Jeff Smith with more on that in the Weather Center. Jeff.
And Lee, what has been interesting this afternoon is watching the numbers change in that respect. We have an 81% chance of 6 inches or more in Central Park, so we're really locking in on that total. Not quite a foot, though, but a 40% chance of that happening. You cross town, though, to JFK Airport. That number jumps up to 60% of over a foot of snow. So a 20 percentage point increase of getting over a foot of snow from Central Park to JFK, showing you how tight that gradient will be just within the 5 boroughs of New York City. Islip, really strong numbers all the way up through a foot, even closing in on 50-50 for 18 inches or more of snowfall. Asbury Park, same deal there. Much less north and west, about a 35% chance of Newburgh in Orange County getting 8 inches or more, only about a 1% chance of 18 inches plus there. And Lee, as we know, right along the northwestern edge of the snowfall in these storms, sometimes you get these really intense bands and you have super high ratios, so sometimes you get little surprises mixed in there as well. So we can't completely rule out these areas north and west.
No doubt about it, Jeff. And the winds are a huge story here. We could have some gusts that are going over 60 miles an hour on the eastern end of Long Island, some moderate coastal flooding on the North Shore, minor coastal flooding along coastal New Jersey. There are your high tide times. Most concerned about late morning on the North Shore and again in the evening, too. Blustery and colder tonight. Steady snow is arriving. Hazardous travel for tomorrow. Heavy snow, especially through early afternoon. Strong winds 22. Tomorrow night down to 13. The snow ends, but there's still blowing and drifting. Sub-zero wind chills. Obviously, the AccuWeather Alert tomorrow. Sunday, blowing and drifting. Tough for the cleanup. And a slow warm-up and melting. And there might be some flooding as we go through midweek. A rainstorm on Thursday. We'll have more weather coming up. Sam Ryan will be in with sports after the break.